Hey Nico, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Ray. How are you?
Oh, look, twice in 1 week. It's good to see you again.
Becoming a habit.
How good is this? Geez, we've got a big one today, Nico.
We have, Ray. This one, it's not far removed from the one we just had.
Yeah, but it's been a while in the making, actually. I think we've been chatting to this guy for some time, and I've been aware of his story for some time too. He's an absolute ripper. We've got a guy that's done a lot of things that most people haven't, but has been through his fair share of challenges in life too. So a terrific story, and I'm pretty excited to chat to a guy that I could say that is a living legend, I reckon, because what he's been through is extraordinary. So welcome to the podcast, our mate, Brendan Cullen. How are you, mate?
Good, thank you, Ray and Nick. Yeah, lovely to be on board. I'm looking forward to the yarn.
Whereabouts are you today, Brendan?
I'm actually in Broken Hill. We get better reception in town here than what we do out on the property. So I figured having a chat with you guys, hopefully it's bomb-proof.
Whereabouts is the station?
Yeah, so currently run a sheep and cattle station south-east of Broken Hill towards Menindee, so halfway between Broken Hill and Menindee, about 60 kilometres.
How many acres out there?
150,000.
Oh, well, just a couple.
Yeah, it's enough to keep you busy. We run about 12,000 head of sheep and 100 head of cattle, and certainly enough to keep us busy. That's for sure.
You've been fishing? Did I hear
that? Yeah. Look, I used to annually go on this trip to Streaky Bay, and I haven't done that for the last 3 years, and just decided to go over there this year with a bunch of friends. We had a great time over there, as we always do. Spent about 7 or 8 days there, and it's a magic part of the world, I must say. It's a great way to unwind.
Did you catch anything decent?
Yeah, a few whiting and shark and blue swimmers. So there's plenty about over there. I'm just come home to dry out now and fall back into the seat.
Get back on track.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brendan, tell us a bit about your background, where you came from. Have you always been out in the station, or where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so look, I was born on a sheep and cattle station north of Broken Hill, a place called Mount Westwood. I went to school in Adelaide at Urbray, then come back to the property after I finished school. In fact, I did a wool classing course in Adelaide and ended up working for Michelle's and Elders for a short period of time.
Oh, really?
And then went home to work the property. Mount Westwood was a little bit over 100,000 acres, and my family have had the place there since 1970. Yeah, and then I met my lovely wife, Jacinta. And then from that point on, we stayed at Mount Westwood for quite a while, and we did a lot of contracting in the area, mustering stock and building watering points. And so we worked for various people on and off, but basically lived at Mount Westwood at the time. And, as the years rolled on, there probably wasn't a lot of room for us, both Jacinta and myself, being on the place, so we had to leave, unfortunately. And then we went managing sheep and cattle stations for other people, pretty much in the same area, really. Border Downs, Pine Ridge, worked on the dog fence, bought a fence to the New South Wales, South Australian border, a place called Avenel Station. Spent nearly 8 years there, and then moved from there on to Car Station, and we've been there now for 8 years and rolling on. So spent most of my life in the bush. Been married for, probably shouldn't have said this, 20 odd years. I'm just trying to remember the exact date, but anyway. And 3 lovely kids, Emma, Charlie and Darcy. So we've got twins that are 18 and an older daughter that's 23.
Did I hear they're a bit handy with sport, these kids?
Yeah, no, they go okay. I mean, both my daughters play AFL in Broken Hill and they love it. And certainly my oldest daughter, Emma is heavily involved. And young Darcy, he spent a fair bit of time in the Giants Academy and now is starting up the Ovens Murray League with North Albury Football Club. So that's exciting for him. And I believe they start this weekend.
And were you any good at it, sport, Brendan?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, I suppose. Just looking back, played a lot of AFL back in the day. And yeah, it was an and loved my sport at school. But, there was a lot of restrictions put on you in regards to what you could do once you got out in the bush. So I spent a lot of time running. But when I was down in Adelaide, I played all my junior football with North Adelaide Football Club and managed to tie in a few reserves games before I went and worked in the wool sheds. And basically didn't come back to Adelaide. And was fortunate enough to be selected for the New South Wales state side in the Teal Cup under 17s.
Nice.
It's a lifetime ago.
Boy can play.
And footy just kept calling. So I ended up playing probably close to a couple of hundred games with our local AFL club, Central Football Club in Broken Hill, and loved every minute of it. It's a club which my family have been around for a very long time. My granddad played there in the 50s, and it's just a wonderful spot to be. And my daughters both played for the Pies in town, so and played quite late.
Yep.
Up until I think my last game I was in my 40s, my last game. So it was a long, drawn-out AFL career, that's for sure.
How's the body?
Not too bad, actually. Yeah, not too bad. What am I, 51 this year? So it's pretty good. So I spend a lot of time running, out in the bush. So I'd go working, get up every day, muster sheep, cattle, goats, whatever it may be, put up fences and just the real basic stuff. And then at the end of the day, I'd put the sneakers on and go for a run. I suppose that was probably what I was limited to after a while. When we moved from Avenel to Cars Station, I changed my hand at swimming. I'd seen my brother swim the Bondi to Bronte Ocean Swim in Sydney.
Yep.
He's an inspiration to me. As a young fella, Lachlan, at the age of 2, he lost his hand. I've seen him do some amazing stuff over the years, and he's a truly inspirational young fella, or old bloke now. He'd be 49. And I watched him swim it, and I thought, geez, I've got to do that. So basically I come back after watching him and started swimming. Yeah, I haven't been able to stop since, but it's nice to be able to change the running and swimming up, that's for sure.
How did your brother lose his hand at the age of 2?
Yeah, unfortunately, he got his hand stuck between 2 water tanks and crushed his hand, carting water. So, when I say it's unfortunate, well, obviously is, the bloke, I remember when I was a young bloke and they put a claw on him to be able to pick up whatever was lying around, and he basically threw it away from the word go. It was hard to keep on him, and I think I ended up using it trying to knock him over the head with it. I think I got a bit jealous of him when I was a young fella. Well, that's what I was told. But look, I've seen him do some incredible things, and it certainly hasn't stopped him from forging away in life, that's for sure.
So tell us a bit about the swimming.
Yeah. So from that moment when I came back to Cars after watching Locke, I joined up with a local swim club, Broken Hill Aquatic Swim Club, and I figured that I'd need to start training if I wanted to do the odd ocean swim or...
Yeah, let's go straight to the ocean swimming. You've swum the English Channel twice. Tell us about that.
Yeah, look, it's quite surreal swimming the Channel. Well, firstly, you need a lot of good people around you. You need a lot of understanding people around you. You need incredible family support, which I had. And you need to be committed to a goal, because if you rip yourself off in any way or form to try and achieve something like that, you're not going to make it. It's as simple as that. You can't hide when you're out there. You're by yourself. You're in your bathers, goggles, skull cap.
I think I might have seen a photo of you in your budgie smugglers, actually, Brendan.
Well, a couple of mates of mine were walking down the street. I think we did the Henley to Grange, and funnily enough, we were walking down the street in our smugglers because we had to park the car 500 metres from where we started. And I looked at him, I said, did you ever think we'd be walking down the street in a pair of bloody budgie smugglers like this? But anyway, yeah, look, I think, the training process took 3 years. Because I wasn't much of a swimmer beforehand. So, in fact, I swam for 6 or so years before I actually got to England. Training was difficult. Plenty of swimming in cold water, swimming in the Menindee Lake, swimming in my little pool at home with a pool band on, swimming down in Melbourne, swimming in the dark, 8-hour swims, 6-hour qualifier in water that's 16 degrees and less. I managed to get through all that process and some really tough swims through that period. I remember jumping on the train, heading to Dover. My wife and my daughter came with me, plus my team. We were on a train and we came into Dover and looked out across and could see the French shoreline. It was a clear day. And, at that point I thought, my God, I'm actually here. And my coach, Mike Gregory, I caught up with him in Dover and he said, righto, mate, we're going to wrap you up in cotton wool because, you've trained for this length of time. You're not going to be walking around. You're not going to be going up to Dover Castle. You're not going to be doing anything like that. It's game time. So basically everyone else was running around doing the holiday thing and I was sort of locked up in my hotel room. The only thing I did do was swim. Mike would say to me, okay, you've got 2 more days until your time is to get out on the water. And he said, well, we might as well keep moving, keep swimming. And I just said to him, I said, when are we going to taper, mate? When's it time to taper? He said, mate, you don't taper. Yep. I said, oh, righto. So, we did a couple of swims and then we got the nod from the Sea Leopard charter who were going to charter us across to France. And so at about 8 o'clock in the morning, we all got on the boat, my team, team of 6, the crew, the Sea Leopard charter crew, and we're in the Dover harbour and they didn't open the gates up so we could get out of the harbour. So as it turned out, we started 2 hours later than what we were supposed to. And it's really important to get away early so you can sort of land on the French shores if you make it. Yep. In daylight. It's so much safer. But anyway, as it turned out, they didn't open the gates up until later, and we steamed around towards a beach called Shakespeare's Beach, which is not far out of the Dover harbour. And the boat basically parked up about 500 metres from shore. My crew rubbed me down with Vaseline under my arms, between my thighs, wherever they could get Vaseline, they rubbed it on there. The captain of the boat said, righto, make sure when you get to the beach, adjust your goggles, get ready, and put your hand up once you get out in the water and we'll blow the siren and jump back in and start swimming. Anyway, we got to that point, dived in the water and swam towards the beach and got to the beach and I thought, bloody hell, that felt like a long way. Only 500 metres. And I got out of the water and Jacinta was there taking photos and they were yelling from the boat, don't touch him, because if they touched me, the swim would have failed straight away. Oh, really? So they weren't allowed to go anywhere near me, no. Yeah. So I put my hand up, they blew the siren and away I went. My coach said to me before I started, just swim until you hit something, mate. Just keep swimming until you hit something. Meaning France. So, and I just stood there and I thought, right, just going to be like another day at work. So let's go to work. And swam up to the boat and swam for an hour straight. And then it was my first feed. So that's when my feeding started. So they basically threw a lanyard out with a bottle of, say, flat Coke or Staminade or anything with an ample amount of sugar in it.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, because you're not allowed to touch the boat. You're basically restricted from doing anything. There's no kayak in the water and no swimmer next to you.
Do you swim with a cage or just free?
Just free.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So it's open.
Yep.
Open water. They're quite strict, the Channel Swimming Association. In a way, it's a good thing too because there are old rules and people are aware of them and you just know that you've got to do the right thing. It's as simple as that. So, started swimming. And I had a bit of an idea in my head how long 8 hours would be in the water. So, I was going okay. It's quite rough when I started, and it was rough for a good six hours, I believe. So they parked the boat between the waves and myself, so it's just sort of eased going through the chop.
Yep.
And then it sort of lightened off a bit. But post that first hour feed. I was getting fed every half an hour, and Mike Gregory was saying, mate, get it in quick, get it in quick. So each feed was about, no longer than 10, 15 seconds. I mean, I've got an issue with sculling. I can't scull, so I'm lying on my back trying to get it in. It was a bit of a battle there for a while. So kept punching away, and as the afternoon rolled on, I felt that I'd been in the water for quite a while. I wasn't quite sure how long I was in there. And I just remember 2/3 of the way through the swim, I remember looking up, and it was the first time, I reckon at the 10 or probably the 12-hour mark, it was the first time I'd actually spotted France. I mean, I could see it standing from Dover, but you have no idea what's going on out there. Well, certainly I didn't. Mike's great advice was to just keep your head down, keep swimming. So that's what I did. And I didn't talk either. I think I only muttered a couple of words the whole swim. But I remember swimming along thinking, when's this bloody sun going to go down? It was starting to annoy me a bit. Anyway, so over my right shoulder, I breathe every third stroke, and I could just see the sun going down behind me. And at that point of time, I had to change from, UV goggles into clear goggles swimming at night.
Yep.
And it's interesting because when you're swimming, you become very observant in the water. So basically you can see what everyone's doing on the boat. So you're in there basically naked and you're watching everyone walk around the boat with jumpers and jackets and all the rest of it on. And you're thinking, geez, I wouldn't mind having a jacket around me at the moment. Anyway, there must have been a time in the swim when I was asked to really put a couple of big efforts in. So, up the speed for a couple of hours. And because France was in sight, there's a point called Cap Grenade, which is the shortest point from Dover to France. And the idea is to hit the cap. Unfortunately, I missed it, which means you get swept off in the currents. I remember the team saying they saw a buoy out there and it was at right angles getting slapped against the water. So the currents were about 4.5 knots. So they were going flat out, unbeknownst to me.
What's that? Push you off course?
Yeah, big time. Basically, I was entering what they call the Channel Swimmers Graveyard, where, people start fatiguing. They get pushed away from France. They keep looking up. For whatever reason, it becomes a real struggle.
Yeah.
And it's at that point where some people don't make it. And it's bloody tough. I mean, you just can't hide out there. And for me, the sun had gone down and basically I was swimming on the back right-hand corner. The starboard corner of the boat. And I remember the boat sort of getting away from me a bit. And I'm thinking, am I slowing down or are they speeding up to try and get me to go quicker? I couldn't work it out at the time, but I was fatiguing. There's no doubt about that. Funnily enough, my stroke rate hadn't changed from the time I left to that period. So it just maintained momentum through the water. Probably wasn't that effective, but the stroke rate stayed the same. Yeah, just battling away at it. I remember watching my coach walk around on the deck and he was getting changed. Because I wasn't talking a lot, they didn't know what was going on with me. And I just kept swimming until I hit something. And I'm a massive Collingwood supporter. My coach is a Carlton supporter. So I've looked up and here he is wearing a Carlton jumper. I've looked at him and I've just given him the bird from the ocean. But it wasn't long after that you could see the lights of France. And I still had no idea how far away I was. I was just swimming. All of a sudden, Mike yells out, last feed. And he told me about this many a time. And when you call last feed, it's basically your last feed before you hit the shores of France.
Okay.
And I was in disbelief. There's footage out there now. You can see the look on my face and the expletives that come out of my mouth at the time. And, in total disbelief. Anyway, Mike jumped in and swam behind me. So you can get someone can actually swim near you or behind you, but they can't get in front of you. And he swam behind me. Anyway, they called last feed, but they were a bit further out than what they perceived. And I was running out of energy. And because I was being fed every half an hour, I just knew that, whatever they were putting in coffee or Coke or whatever it might be, it gave me a sort of 15, 20-minute energy burst.
Yep.
And we'd swam beyond that. And I said to Mike, mate, I need a feed. And he said, just keep swimming, mate, keep swimming. Because he knew what was going on. I had no idea what was going on. So I thought, righto. Anyway, they pulled a bull light out on the boat and they said, swim towards the light. So we basically swam towards the light. The next minute, I was swimming along and my left hand touched the sands of France.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the boat.
No. My left hand touched the sands of France, and I feel it every time I talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's an emotion I can't explain, and I don't expect people to understand. But every time I have this discussion, I get goosebumps and shivers down my spine because I know I wasn't expecting it. You don't know if you were going to achieve it. There's just a whole lot of stuff there packaged up that you have no idea about, just sheer emotion. And I remember hitting it and I thought, my God, I'm in France. I heard Mike say, mate, just stand up and walk out, because one of the things you have to do is be completely out of the water. So you can't just stand up and say you've hit it. You've actually got to get out of the water. Yeah. And I remember standing up and walking on the sands of France at 3 a.m. in the morning, just in disbelief. And I thought I'd be stumbling out, but I walked out okay. And then Mike come out behind me and we embraced. It was one of the greatest hugs ever. Well, I bawled my eyes out for 5 minutes and struggled. And then I just said to Mike, hey, Mike, I've got to get some pebbles from my kids. So I took off up into the sand hills looking for rocks to bring home back to Australia. And he gave me 5 minutes. And honestly, there's no pebbles in France. So he said to me, mate, we've got to get back to the boat. He thought I'd lost the plot completely. So they had a tender boat. They launched that off the main boat. Well, that broke down, so they had to oar their way to the beach. They picked me up and they said to Mike, mate, you might as well swim back because you're going to be there quicker than what we will be. And they shoved me in the boat and got me back to the Sea Leopard and stuck me in the boat and completed the journey, 17 hours exact and 64 kilometres later. Nearly ended up in Belgium there at one stage. But,
did you have to bulk up for the swim?
Yeah, I started at about 87 kilos. By the time I got in the water, I was 97, so nearly 10 kilos. So I had to get fat and fast, or fat and strong. And it's funny because normally you're trying to knock a bit of beef off you, but putting it on, knowing that it's something you need to do, there's something good about that. In fact, I guts myself, mate. The amount of ice cream I ate. I mean, you're physically training hard and eating a lot. Yeah, I did enjoy that, but I had to buy jeans and bloody pants and shorts because nothing fit me anymore. It was one hell of an experience.
What makes you wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to swim the English Channel?
Oh, look, it came out by accident, honestly. It certainly wasn't my intent, but I've got this habit of challenging myself all the time, whether it be in work environment or running or whatever it may be, and I keep pushing myself to the limit. That pretty much is what happened with my swimming. I started swimming, 1 or 2 Ks, and I found myself swimming 10, wanted to swim further, see what I could do. Look, I saw a brochure on the wall down in Brighton Bars in Melbourne. There was a qualifier, which I 2 hour, a 6 hour, and 8 hour, and I did a 2 hour. I was quite lean back then. I got a taste of what it was like to swim in cold water And of course, that set something off, and creating a relationship with my coach back at the time, we ended up great mates, and one thing led to another. And Mike Gregory is a open water Hall of Famer, Australian Hall of Famer, done some incredible swims, and I sort of lucked upon it really. And he said to me one day, he said, you might want to have a look at having a crack at the English Channel. And I sort of scoffed at it a bit because, I thought it was very unrealistic, living where I live. I got home and I thought, you know what, why not? Why not have a go at it? Not for any other reason, but to see if I could do it. And it all stemmed from there. It's always awesome to train for a purpose, and it seemed like a decent enough purpose to train towards. I had a hell of a lot to learn. That was my induction into swimming in cold water and things like that. So that was really what got me going. I'm on the record to say that it helps with my mental health. There is no doubt about that. That's a given in my life. That's a non-negotiable. Whether it be running or swimming or whatever it may be, there's got to be something like this in my life for me to enjoy myself. It's just who I am. It's how I'm built. It's just what I do.
It's easy to look at you, Brendan, and go, what an amazing person. You got it all together. You live the dream. You've swum the channel. You've had a rough trot, though. Tell us a bit about what that's been like.
Yeah, I was diagnosed with depression in 2015. Leading into being diagnosed, working on family property and management and of other properties, and possibly it goes a long way back before all that. But my lack of ability to be able to get stuff out of my head, I used to cart a lot of baggage around with me. Going through droughts is one of the obvious ones because you've got to go through a whole lot of stuff when you're going through that. Succession, wanting to look after the family property or take over and not being able to do that. Alcohol played a strong role in me feeling like I did, self-medication.
Yeah.
Setting ridiculously unrealistic goals on a day-to-day basis, not being able to meet them. That's self-imposed pressure, really. You become recluse. You're not present in your family life. And people pleasing, you're just doing it for everyone else and not for yourself. I remember one of the warning signs, or a couple of warning signs, in fact. I was standing in the kitchen looking at my wife and I felt like I was having a heart attack. And, I had a strong bout of anxiety, I think, and didn't go to hospital, of course, like a bloody lunatic, should have gone. Went to the doctors, I was basically out of testosterone, so I was having testosterone injections, and in the meantime I'm just going as hard as I possibly could, and it sort of come to a head where I actually went to this RFDS. It was run by a lady by the name of Jill Rigney. It was like I don't know what you call it, but it's basically there to help people out and allow them to work their time out better. And realised after going to see Jill Rigney with a bunch of other people that I was in a pretty ordinary space. And it's funny when you're struggling because you don't actually know where to look. You don't know who to ask. You don't know what numbers to ring. Really difficult to self-diagnose because, let's face it, we're a resilient bunch until we get to a point where we can't push on anymore.
Yeah.
And
You can only bend so far.
yeah, that's right. And you're not expected to self-diagnose, but I got to a point where I was pretty crook. And I remember walking up into the Broken Hill Base Hospital and asking for help, and basically on the spot they diagnosed me with depression and put me on antidepressants right there and then. That was probably one of the greatest days of my life because then it gave me an excuse to be able to work on myself, and it gave me an understanding of what I was going through, because up until that point I just kept pushing harder and harder and harder and harder. I just learnt to treat myself a little bit better beyond that point and created a toolbox for myself that I keep referring back to today. So if I relapse in any way or form, and it might be a delicate relapse, it might be geez, I've been drinking a bit too much of late. I need to rein this back in or stop. I mean, I have this love-hate relationship with alcohol. I mean, I love it and it loves me, and we don't get along. And to do that, you sort of need to remove yourself from influences around that, or how do you navigate around all that? But that's only one thing. I mean, exercise plays another huge role, and putting yourself first for once, not being selfish, but just taking care of yourself pretty much. And, you know, never give up on the things that you love to do the most. I mean, that's what we give up generally in our working life. We love to do something and then we give it up for life needs or work or whatever it may be. And if you do that, you give up your fun. So, yeah, I was in a pretty ordinary place, but I'm in a bloody good one now. My life is a whole lot different now than what it used to be.
But you see, like, it's interesting you say that, and it sounds so easy to say, but then when you're in the moment, what does that feel like? Because it's so hard to get out of that when you're there.
It's never simple, but you need to make a commitment to yourself. You need to have a lifestyle change. That's basically what you got to commit to. That's really tough. I mean, I always talk about taking the first step of asking the question, you know, I need help. And you may not be in a depressed state, you may be just fatigued. Who's to judge that? Until you actually ask for help, it's really difficult to forge forward. So I think being visible with the conversation helps a lot, because, you know, no longer do I have to skirt around the edges or, you know, dodge shadows talking about, you know, mental health, both myself or anyone else. In fact, I was on the phone to a bloke this morning. We had a discussion about it from left field, and, you know, it makes it easier, makes the conversation easier. So if you want to bottle it up and hold it in as close as to your chest as you want to, that's entirely up to you. But I guarantee you, if you have the capacity to be able to talk about it, whether it be with a GP or your best mate or whoever it may be, what you'll find is you'll end up surrounding yourself with the people that you like being around and the people that will listen to your conversations. You'll draft off the ones that don't want to come on your journey. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean that in a way that, you know, you find you'll surround yourself with a heap of support, but at the same time, you'll be also supporting them. So it's not a one-way street, but you just got to remember that, you know, you got to put yourself first, because I didn't for a long period of time, you know, inadvertently. And I know that my family, my direct family, and my wife and my kids, probably I wasn't as present as I needed to be. I'm aware of that. I'm a totally different person now, thankfully. It takes a lot of courage. You just got to surround yourself with good people.
So what would you say to someone that's got someone around them that's got mental health issues? What's your advice to them now, Brendan?
Yeah, look, if I'm having a conversation with someone now and I know they've been through a hard time, I think the question of, how you going, mate, has a totally different meaning than what it used to have. And I think having a lived experience and going through it, you do recognise signs within people. So whether they're, you know, struggling to a point where they're in no man's land or they're just really battling with their day-to-day grind, you know, that's a conversation you can have without fault. You know, you're not scared of actually having that chat. So the conversations I have with people are really based around, how you going, mate? You know, how you feeling? And usually once you interact with those individuals or your friends or whoever it may be, I have a tendency to follow that conversation up, and willingly and want to, because I know that there could be something going on. But that's basically it really for me. Like I said, you surround yourself with good people. And sometimes those conversations come freely back to you too, because they know that you're an advocate for this mental health space, and then you'll find that you'll have conversations with people you've never met before. Sometimes that's just enough.
It's pretty inspiring where this has led you now to, by the way. So you're an ambassador for Lifeline, yeah?
Yeah, been an ambassador of Lifeline for, Oh, geez, 6 years now, I suppose, with Amanda Johnson, who's got willy-nilly art in Broken Hill.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it was a lovely honour to be bestowed that upon both of us, actually, and opened my eyes up to some of the hurt and the pain that's in the community. It's not all bad. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff going on, but if you're a trusted person within the community and people happily open themselves up, and it's not clinical, you're in the peer support space. So, I mean, you're not going to fix everything and everyone that has a chat with you, you know that, but you can be a conduit to a service and you can get them into a safe place and you're trusted. There's many a time where I've taken people into, say, the RFDS or the Connect Centre in Broken Hill, or given them some numbers to call, or basically they can ring me and have a chat. So, I mean, that's our role as an ambassador. But we also do some stuff with the Royal Flying Doctor Service with the We've Got Your Back program, which is a partnership with Lifeline and the RFDS that basically looks after people in rural and remote areas. So there's about 5 of us, I believe, champions that work in that peer support space. People can just ring us up and ask for help if they need help. At times I might not hear from anyone for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I might hear from 3 or 4 people in 1 week. It just varies. Wonderful, iconic programs, Lifeline and the Royal Flying Doctor Service. But the other thing is in this peer support space, we can go to wherever we need, Mission Australia, refer to GPs. It doesn't really matter. It's never a one-size-fits-all. Certainly make that point when I'm talking to people. If it doesn't work the first time, we go back and have a look at something else until you form some kind of relationship with someone that you trust. 9 times out of 10, it works, which is good. And it takes the pressure off the clinical side of things. I mean, there are cases where it's just tough, but there are other cases where, the thing for me is I just love seeing people come good and change their lives for the better and make solid decisions for themselves. 9 times out of 10, they ended up in a better place. It's good to see.
That's a good ratio, 9 out of 10.
Yeah, well, the ones that I've had a little bit to do with, and I'm sure it's across the board. I mean, the fact that they've actually opened up and are willing to have a conversation is probably 50% of getting to where they need to be. Yeah. Because, I heard not long ago from a clinician that it takes on average about 8 years before people put their hand up and ask for help. That's a bloody long time.
That's crazy, isn't it?
8 years. I mean, it's insane. I look back at myself after being diagnosed, and I thought, that's all the 20 years leading into that. Yeah, there's a whole myriad of reasons why you think like you do. So, yeah, it's crazy. 8 years is just insane.
That's
unbelievable.
Time. So since you've kind of been on this journey, not only have you swum the English Channel, you've probably had some crazy adventures and things that you never thought you'd do in your life. Tell us a bit more about some of the things that have happened where you've gone, this is crazy. How did I just wake up and that happen?
Yeah, well, we did another channel crossing last year with a team.
So you've done
channel
2?
Attack. Yeah, team Channel Attack. So we had a couple of people from Greg Rolton and Amanda McKenna from Adelaide. They were on the team. We had a team of 6, and we've Ben Clavel from Broken Hill and Claire from the UK, who we'd never met before, just assumed and hoped that she was doing the training, and mate, just a character. Yeah. And Peter Bradley, who's an ice miler. I think there's only 36 ice milers in the country.
What's an ice miler?
You swim 1,600 metres in water that's 5 degrees or less. That's when the messaging from your brain detaches from your muscles, and then a whole bunch of stuff. It's crazy stuff. In fact, Ben Clavel is going to have a crack at 1 kilometre in New Zealand in July with Peter Bradley. I mean, that took us 13 hours, but as a team event, you have to do an hour each and rotate it. And if one of you misses that hour or gets injured, the whole swim's off.
Oh, really?
So, you just got to make sure you do the work and hopefully, you're not scared of the dark, or you can get through it. But we managed to get that done in 13 hours, which was quite extraordinary. It's a it was a wonderful, wonderful time to go back over there and do that and do it as a team. I think you could probably call that half crazy. I don't know. I've done some bloody mad stuff in my time. Spent my time, on motorbikes, and I mean that's just what I do.
Yeah.
And with my stock work, and the one thing that I've learnt is that if you've got an opportunity and it's put in front of you, always say yes, because you never know where it's going to lead you. You'll kick yourself if you don't, because you can make plenty of excuses not to say yes. I think we're lucky if we grow old, and you guys would probably attest to that. If you can get through your youth, make it to your 50s, you're going all right.
Yeah, you're doing all right.
Absolutely.
What's the next challenge for the so-called desert swimmer?
Well, look, we've got a 100k run coming up in July. My brother's coming across from Armidale, and he's bringing a handful of mates that are runners. And I got a couple of mates from Melbourne, and I thought, that'll be good to do. Anyway, we're going to start at cars, and we're going to see if we can punch out 100k's. And I'm starting on the back foot. I fell off my ute in January and broke my foot.
Oh, really?
So it was not super bad, but it's enough to put me off my training for about 3 months, like proper training. And just started back in it. And I'm enjoying it because you can walk out your door and go running. You don't have to travel to the water, which is good.
Yeah, because you did a bit of training in Lake Menindee, is that right?
Yeah. I when I started, did all my training there, especially cold water training. I mean, when it was that low, there was no water in the Menindee Lakes when I started, but a little place called Copey Hollow, and there was a channel called the Watanella Channel, which is sort of a channel that goes into Menindee Lake. I mean, that was bone dry. Got that low that when I was swimming, my fingers were hitting the mud, and the fish were coming up, and one swam into my mouth. Carp swam into my mouth. I was going along. I tell you what, one of the funniest things that I heard about this bloke was swimming the Bondi to Watson's Bay as a team. So it's about 10 Ks. You come out of Bondi and you swim north up the coast, and then you come back in through the heads of Sydney. And I heard a rumour about this bloke who was hung like a horse. And anyway, we were swimming as teams, and as it turned out, I was swimming with this bloke. And anyway, we're halfway through the swim. This bloke's a farmer, and my bloody brother and his mate, when it was their turn to jump in, because we were changing over every 20 minutes or something like that, they ripped their kit off. And they were swimming naked, up along the coast.
Yeah.
And I thought, you've set a precedence, we've got to jump in. So we've ripped our kit off, old mate and myself, and we're swimming along, and I'll swim behind this bloke. And fair dinkum, mate, I was probably about 5 metres behind him, and all I could see was this extra arm hanging off his hip. Swimming in the water. I was choking in fits of laughter, trying to swim up the coast.
That's gold.
Seriously, it was bloody hilarious. I've still got this picture in my face. Anyway, I mean, that's just one of the things. I mean, the open water swimming community, and you put open water swimming community and a bunch of farmers together, it's lunacy all round. But it's one of the most wonderful communities I've ever been part of, the open water swimming community, because they just want you to get in and achieve your goals, whether you're swimming from England to France or, swimming your first 500 metres. Everyone's so supportive and quite incredible.
You got to be a bit crazy to be doing that, don't you?
Yeah, you've got to. Yeah, there's not a lot of grey matter going on up there. There's no doubt about that. I think there's been a bit over 2,500 people that have swam the channel solo.
Oh, right, far out. That's a few.
Yeah, there's a few. But
how many have made it, and how many don't make it?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but you can't hide out there. It's a lonely place. Basically, you just got to rely on your training and hope you succeed. I mean, if you're in the water for 16, 17 hours, there's so many variables. You know, the weather can pick up. And in fact, you can get that dangerous that the boats have to call it and pull you into the boat. And I heard a story of a lady, an Australian lady that swam a few years ago, and she got within 500 metres
Oh my
of the
God.
shore, and she ended up in the French shipping lane, and she had to be pulled out.
Oh, no.
Yeah. She came back and conquered it the second go around. But there are horror stories like that. I got crooked during the swim. The last four hours, I was, blowing out snot and all sorts of stuff, and then I just remember the following day having a feed, breakfast, my first decent feed. And I never want to see staminate again. I consumed that much of it, but my throat was burning and just crooked, and it's so fatigued that when I'd come home, I'd lie on the floor at lunch, and might have 10 minutes, but it ended up being 2 hours. Things like that, just unfamiliar with what was going on with me. So I'm not like that now.
I can confirm that 4,133 people have tried to swim the channel, and only 1,800 have made it.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's funny because you're swimming with people who you're familiar with, so you feel like there's a lot of people out there doing it, but the realities are there's not. Yeah, it's a big world out there, and it took me a while to get my head around that. It also took me a while to get my head around what I'd achieved. I achieved it. I remember walking down to Dover Beach the next day at 5 o'clock in the morning, just sitting there looking out towards France. And I just thought to myself, what just happened? I can't believe that's just happened. I had wonderful support when I got back to Broken. I had no idea the whole town was behind the swim. Literally, everyone was just locked on to, the swim chart. And I said, why doesn't he swim in a bloody straight line? I'm getting dragged around from one point of the ocean to the next. And when I got back, the Broken Hill Aquatic Swim Club met me at the airport, and a few family members and some friends. And that was pretty awesome. And, we ended up having a reception that was put on by the swim club, and then we had a civic reception after that, and there was just some stuff going on, and it took me a while to realise the significance of what had just taken place, because seriously, I just wanted to get to the other side, and I had no idea how much the town were behind me. And in financial sense, we raised over 40-odd thousand for Lifeline.
That's amazing.
It's a hell of a fundraising effort, really. I mean, the community rallied right around us. Yeah. So the longer, post-swim, certainly the post-solo swim, it gives me a greater understanding what it means to people. I've got this wonderful certificates on my wall above my computer, and I sit there and look at it, and I thought, I just cannot believe that happened. Yeah, so it's amazing what happens when you're just so focused and you actually achieve something like that. I don't know what the outcome would have looked like if I didn't make it. Knowing me, I probably would have wanted to go back and have another go. And they said, what are you going to do after your solo? I said, well, I'm not going back to Dover anyway. 12 months later, I went back again. But there is a couple of others. I'm looking at that Cook Strait between the North and South Island. There's a thing called the Triple Crown open water swimming, which is, the English Channel, the 21 bridges swimming around Manhattan. It's a freshwater swim, and Catalina Channel, the bottom end of America there. There's some stuff there that may go ahead, but, there's no promise. So you've got to make a promise to yourself, because the work that you have to put in and the time, and bear in mind, you've still got a day job. So there's a lot going on, and you just, every minute of your day is working around when you're going to get in the water next. And so it is quite consuming, that's for sure.
It must be, especially when you're receiving citizenship awards on Australia Day. Tell us about that.
Yeah, what an honour that was. I mean, that just come out of the blue, and I don't know. I love Australia Day, and to be part of that day was, such an honour. Certainly being in town and representing your town, and I shared the award with, I think there was 8 other recipients. Standing up there and meeting some lovely people, and talking to past recipients. I mean, it was just extraordinary. You know, it's another pinch yourself moment.
So, Brendan, you've been waiting for this question for the whole podcast. Tell us about what your I should have stayed in bed moment has been in life.
I could have stayed in bed for a long time for a lot of reasons, but unfortunately, I get bed bugs, so I'm out at 5 every morning, and I wish my wife probably wishes I stayed in bed for a lot longer than I do, but bloody horrible, yeah.
No, but so, I love that. Like, you've actually kind of you've got a lot of reasons to get out of bed now, haven't you? And that's probably the difference.
So many, so many. You know, life is short. You realise how short it is. And, you know, as you get older, it starts racing. You hear that a lot. But, you know, I live my life through my family's eyes, my wife and my kids. For me, they're the greatest reward.
What does Jacinda think of all these crazy ideas you come up with?
Yeah, we're on the same page. That's exactly it.
Well, she's followed me through hell and high water, I must admit. I mean, you know, she's been on this journey for a very long time. I mean, we met each other when we were 17. We were married at 23. We lived in the bush. She's been there the whole journey. And to be fair, she's been unbelievable. And as we've got on and grown together, she understands how my brain works. So there's never a pushback, never, ever a pushback in anything I try and do. There's a few roll my eyes moments and probably more than I like. But it's also, you know, one of the journeys that I've been able to take her along, and vice versa. She's been awesome for me too. And the older we get, the more we get along. So I don't know if that's a natural thing, but it's certainly a nice place to be. And just seeing our children grow up, they don't have to achieve much. They just got to stay fit and healthy and, you know, in themselves, and they'll be okay.
Yeah,
so she's been good, really good.
And the kids must get a kick out of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they do. We've had some funny conversations around it. And, you know, having Emma there, and she'd finished school, and we thought we'd reward and bring her across. And, you know, having her there when I arrived back in Dover was something out of a bloody movie. Seeing Jacinda and Emma walk down the steps when I arrived back in Dover, that was something, that's another pinch yourself moment. It was a bit like your hands, you know, being dragged through the sands of France. It was ridiculous. It's surreal.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I've managed to have a surreal moment in my life, and, you know, something that I didn't know existed.
One last question from me, Brendan. We're probably angling for Broken Hill Tourism to sponsor us, but we've had this is our second podcast this week with someone from... What is it you love about Broken Hill?
Oh, it's a safe town, and the people, you know, their terms of endearment in this town are quite unique. I can't repeat them on the podcast, but you know, people that are born and bred, and you've heard the term A grader. If you're born in Broken Hill, you're an A grader. You know, it's just a wonderful community, caring, nurturing, understanding, and it's just like having a bunch of mates. I think it's a wonderful place, and it's a safe place to bring your kids up. You have the great facilities here. Hospitals, whatever it may be, and you know, you're right on the edge of the outback. You know, you only got to go 5 minutes either way of town, and you're in the desert. Yeah, it's just a wonderful place. I mean, I've been here for 50 years now, and I find that, you know, even people that are born here and go away, they just, you know, navigate back here, or need some form of connection back into Broken Hill, and then you see people come here. You know, let's say nurses, you know, first responders, teachers, whoever it may be, miners and whatever. They come here for 12 months and then they leave, you know, 16 years later.
Yeah.
And they have families here and whatnot. And, you know, I'm assuming that would happen other places, but you know, it's a very special place. Broken Hill has so much to offer.
And I've got to ask, when you were swimming the channel, were you craving a bit of cheese slaw?
I was craving meat.
Broken Hill's got so many things about Broken Hill that just make it different.
Yeah, cheese slaw on toast. Yeah, beautiful.
Cheese slaw toasty.
Yeah, that's what Andrew said. Yeah, cheese slaw toasty. It's actually a thing, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the duck's guts. I mean, there's 3 or 4 different varieties of cheese slaw out there, but most of the recipes are from here.
Love
So,
it.
and I think we all know where to go and get it.
Well, Brendan, thanks again for making the trip into Broken Hill just so you get coverage to talk to us today. We're going to call this Brendan Cullen round 1 because we're going to do a face-to-face round 2 with you. You're an absolute legend. We're so inspired by what you've achieved and what you've been through. It's an incredible story. And I know that we've only just scraped the surface and there's some pretty exciting things ahead that we might put into round 2. But, yeah, we're not allowed to talk about that yet, are we, Nico?
No, we've got to keep that hush.
But thanks again for your time. Good to finally chat to you, but let's chat again face-to-face soon.
Look, absolutely awesome. Thanks very much for the opportunity, Ray, Nick. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to our next chat. And I'm looking forward to catching up face-to-face. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it should be good.
Thanks, Brendan.
Good on you.
Thanks,
Thanks
mate.
very much. Okay, bye. Absolutely. It's the duck's guts.